Welcome all hunters, anglers, trappers, and shooters to the only fish and wildlife conservation podcast that goes behind the scenes of the business of conservation, the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Our podcast is hosted by John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute and Jim Cucaruto of the Outdoor Stewards of Conservation Foundation. John and Jim will talk with experts from all sectors of the conservation arena about their passion for conserving the great outdoors. So please welcome our hosts of the Connecting with Conservation podcast, John and Jim.
Welcome to Connecting with Conservation, the only podcast that delves into the business side of hunting, fishing, and all your other outdoor-related activities. I'm John Gassett from the Wildlife Management Institute, and your co-host today, and I'm here with my fellow co-host, Jim Cucaruto from Outdoor Stewards of Conservation. How are you doing today, Jim?
I'm doing great. And, like you mentioned, Connecting with Conservation talks about, four main categories: hunting, fishing, trapping, and target shooting. And, we tend to focus, because our world was guns and ammo. We focus on the hunting. But I tell you what, somebody asked me if I had my choice to only fish or hunt. That's a damn hard question for me, but I think I'd have to do fishing. Just love everything about it. And today we got a guy that knows a lot about fishing. So Glenn, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and some of your favorite things to do, and then we'll get into talking about all things fishing.
Sounds great. Thanks, Jim and John. Great to be with you guys today. I appreciate the time to talk more about fishing. I haven't done that since before we got on this call. And I've been very fortunate to be at the American Sportfishing Association for the last 11 plus years and president for the last 7. Growing up in Pennsylvania, had great opportunities for fishing in the outdoors and have been doing it for 60 years now. Yes, I am that old. And so I have been so fortunate to be around the industry and had the opportunity to publish fishing and boating magazines for 25 years and be up here now in DC, saving the world one fish at a time, one angler at a time.
Well, I tell you what, so, you're talking about saving fishing, so tell us about American Sport Fishing Association and what it is, and trade association, what you guys do.
Absolutely. So we are a ASA, the only trade association really representing all of fishing, saltwater, freshwater, et cetera. And really it's as a trade organization, that means we represent all the rods and reels and lines and lure companies, all the fishing nets and marine electronics and even boats and engines and anything that people do with fishing. And that includes clothing, technical clothing like what I'm wearing versus, something you wouldn't be wearing fishing. So that makes up about 900 members. We've been around for 92 years now. And we've been really focusing on a mission of looking out for the interests of the sport fishing industry and the entire recreational fishing community. And we do that by focusing on 5 pillars. We want clean water, we want abundant fisheries, we want access to those fish, we want to support trade and commerce, and increase participation in fishing. And if we're doing those things, then the industry is going to do okay. And if we're not doing those things, we got to get back to focusing on these things. So it's been quite a whirlwind this year, and really since COVID, things have been really strong until we've kind of hit somewhat of a wall here, and so we spend a lot of time generally on fisheries issues. We've got an outstanding government affairs team of 7 folks plus 2 others on public affairs. And they just do a great job around the country, both freshwater and saltwater, whether it's invasive species and lead fishing tackle to dealing with NOAA or dealing with Fish and Wildlife Service. And so the shout outs to them for the work they do. And thanks to the members for paying their membership dues. And our trade show ICAST is also really funds a majority of what we do at ASA. ICAST, if your folks haven't been there, come on down to Orlando, July 14 to 18 for 2025 and have fun and see the industry, see all the new products and get a chance to talk shop with everybody and anybody involved with fishing.
So Glenn, a lot of our listeners probably don't know this, but you actually have a connection to Connecting with Conservation podcast. And that was the old Fish and Wildlife Business Summit that we started probably close to 20 years ago. And rocked along, and it was, the industry sitting down with the state agencies and the federal agency leadership to navigate or work through potential issues or problems we might have to that not just to the business side of manufacturing and producing products and getting them in the hands of retail or in the hands of customers, but also the excise tax that flows into the agencies for conservation. That's a part of that process, and that worked well for a while. Of course, COVID, it was a casualty of COVID, and we stopped doing the business summit. And then Jim and I got the idea to start this podcast to see if we can reach an even broader audience on the issues associated with excise tax in the industry. And now we have a very clear and present issue front and center, and that's the issue of tariffs on fishing tackle. Something we would have probably put before the business summit. Now we'll do it through our podcast. So tell us about the tariff issue and how it impacts the importation of fishing products.
So, well, first, again, thanks, John, for getting that going 20 years ago. And it did have an impact. It did help organize us, direct us, and focus on the things that were important. And, before we touch tariffs, I would certainly like to comment that this is the 75th anniversary for the Sportfish Restoration Boating Trust Fund. Dingell Johnson signed back in 1950, has had a huge impact on fisheries and habitat and access to fishing. And if people didn't know, we are the envy of the world. I've spent time with folks in Japan. I've spent several trips in Europe, and they wish we had the program we have when it comes to the industry helping pay the bill to ensure that we have access and we have healthy fisheries and waters. And the same thanks to Pittman Robertson and all the work that's been done on that side. So we have so many great areas to fish, and the Sportfish Restoration Act needs to be reauthorized again this year. And our industry has been giving more than $200 million a year, and combine that with more than $400 in motorboat fuel tax. You're looking at a total that's been $700 million a year going back to conservation. And it's just so important that people recognize and thank our industry and that how that money gets passed along to retailers and anglers. And so it's a very positive program that we want to continue to support. And so that leads us now to tariffs, where if you think about fishing tackle industry, we estimate that somewhere in the neighborhood of 40% of the product is made here in the United States. That could vary 10% either way, but it sort of depends on the product categories you look at also. So where there are a lot of soft plastic baits are made here in the U.S., most of the rod and reel manufacturing is done in Asia. And when you think about that product coming in, if there's an unknown on how much is going to be tariffed or how much the tariff's going to be, then the manufacturer is going to slow down the manufacturing right now. They're going to slow down the amount that is brought into the country. The retailer is going to wait because they don't really know what the pricing is. And therefore, the amount of product that's going to be brought into market is going to be lower. And the end user is going to be hesitant on buying new product if there is a tariff put on that, because it could get lowered again. So while sales will be okay here over the next several months because of product that's already in the United States, and the average company tells me they have between 2 and 4 months of inventory. And then you look at the inventory that the retailers might have. Once that gets cleared out, then maybe you don't have the same inventory over the summer months, or you're going to be waiting on how much you produce, or you're going to produce less. And so we could really see a huge drop in sales if we don't fix the tariff issue in China. Now, I support the president and I support what he's trying to accomplish. That's going to come at the expense of some businesses and sales. Certainly, we need to figure it out and make sure that China's doing things right as well. But if we don't fix this, not only does that lower sales, that also then lowers the amount of money that comes back to conservation.
Sure. And I was, I'm not an economist, but I've always wondered about that equation is, you're dealing with a lot of these projects have a fairly narrow profit margin. And, on top of that, we've got the excise tax that, other products don't have, but that's a part of our model. The end result is if they stay in place, it does result in increased prices to the consumer. I mean, that's the only place to account for the tariff that I can see. So, hopefully this thing gets it, shakes out and gets to some level of fairness so that we don't see, skyrocketing prices on baits and rods and reels. But we want to be treated fairly, just like every other country does too. So I agree with that.
Well, the current tariff coming in on products from China, now is 145%. So that price has to get passed along to eventually the angler. The angler is not going to pay that price because they probably believe that the tariff will come back down and then the pricing has to come back down. So this will have a big effect, reverberating effect over the course of this year. And so until we have that straightened out, we're going to have those issues. I think that we have to keep in mind that there's certain product categories that just really aren't built in the U.S. There's a number of rod companies, but the percentage of rods made here is still minimal. As far as reels go, besides Penn making a few reels in Pennsylvania, almost all spinning reels are made in Asia and mostly in China, and so and rods for that matter. And so the idea of, like you said, small margins, the idea of trying to come back to the U.S., build a plant, bring in all the manufacturing facilities that's required, train all the staff that go with that, and then try to make reels at a competitive price is very difficult. And the return on that investment, maybe over 10 years that could turn something positive. That's going to be so difficult for these manufacturers. When we had the tariffs added back in 2018, they dealt with the increase from 7.5% to 15% more or less, and either ate those costs and passed along some of those costs. But they can't go much further than that. And like you said, the excise tax they're paying, that first sale is 10%. That's more than the profit that these guys make net right now. And so again, they've been willing to do that to support not only conservation, but the idea that so people have access to fishing. These tariffs are just money lost for them, and it's going to be so difficult for us to deal with that if they continue.
Yeah, and it affects a lot of people. I mean, last I saw, I want to say 60 million anglers in America.
Yeah, based on RBFF's research done with the Outdoor Foundation, we said in 2023 that there were 57.7 million anglers. And that number had grown even from 22. We don't know the number yet for 24. We'll know soon enough. And those anglers are spending about $10 billion on fishing tackle and about $100 billion on fishing each year. That turns into an economic impact of $230 billion across the U.S. It's a huge market for us, and it's going to get impacted by these tariffs. Trying to make sure that again, most of the time we spent in the past was on fisheries issues and making sure that we had clean water and fish and access to fish. Now we've really had to shift gears here to talk more about tariffs right now. And I've spent time, I get to look up the Potomac River here, and I can see the Capitol about 5 miles away. And I've been with the administration over these last several weeks. We can't really talk about those conversations just yet, but at the same time, their hands are tied also in the way that this process is going. And so we really need to start getting some deals going with some of these countries and apply some pressure to China and hopefully have changes here before the summer season, if you will.
Well, an interesting thing there about the economic impact of both, on both sides of the equation, hunting, recreational shooting, angling, and boating, is what we found during COVID is it's also has a buffer effect. When you have pandemics, more people do those things because they're not associating closely with other folks. So it really, I think there's a direct economic impact from the actual purchases and use and the activities associated with those. But in times where the rest of the economy is suffering, we see, hunting and shooting and fishing and boating tick up. And yeah, I think sometimes that gets lost in the noise, but that's incredibly important for a lot of businesses, I think.
We're going to see, as RBFF, Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, would talk about churn. We're going to see a lot of churn as we have each year, and it's kind of grown each year because, to their credit, they brought a lot of new anglers into the market, and those entry-level anglers tend to buy entry-level product through some of the larger chain stores, and that's fine. Trying to keep those folks continuing to be engaged is more difficult. You're going to have your core anglers that are going to continue to fish, and they'll continue to buy product. But trying to get those entry-level folks to make sure that they enjoy their participation and come back and do it again we have such a huge responsibility to keep those folks engaged and to get them to continue to fish. And that requires all anglers, all outdoorsmen and women to help take others fishing. And then they'll be buying more product. But if we just do this 1 year wonder type of program and they see increased in prices and just hear the negativity, then they're probably not going to pick it up and do it again. So this is all, it does absolutely affect a big trickle down across the entire market.
All right. So not only, I mean, it's a big deal for us because it affects conservation, what we're talking about on the podcast. It trickles down to conservation, and it's pretty simple, right? If you have lower participation, you have less license sales buyers, and that's $900 million a year, coupled with those $700 million in excise taxes. You have less sales, you're going to have less money there. And what people listening, that money goes to your state DNR. That state DNR stocks trout. They stock walleye. They make it a lot easier for you to get access. They build boat ramps. Without that money coming in, there's no money to replace it. Never has been. And hopefully, down the road there might be, but it's going to affect everyday fishing, So we've got to definitely, work on keeping that participation up and keeping those prices down. And one of the things that we like to do is inform the end user, that everyday fisherman, that they are a primary funder of conservation. And Glenn, you let me run around with a camera one year at ICAST and interview the folks, at the big manufacturers, Z-Man, Rapala, Shimano. And what they did is tell their customers, when you buy a lure, when you buy a rod or a reel, you're a primary funder of conservation. So I guess talk a little bit about, I think Keep America Fishing is an arm of you guys, and talk about participation and to really informing the end user.
Yeah, there's partners, and so we look at public-private partnerships, and so even programs that I give Fish and Wildlife Service and some folks there, shout out to Tom Decker and what they're doing with the partner with the pair programs that help connect the folks that are paying the bills with those that are doing the work. And so those programs over the last several years, and again, part of the 75th anniversary this year is they have a lot of these programs happening. I've been to one so far this year. I'm going to one next week and be another one later in the spring, where we have the manufacturers show off some of the manufacturing that's going on within their facility and their staffs that produce the product. And then we go out to a like you mentioned before, a hatchery, or we go to a boat ramp, or we go to different areas that money is being used. It shows that if you don't have that hatchery and if you don't have that boat ramp, then people don't go fishing. If there's no fish to catch or no place to put a boat in. And so these things are very important to have that connectivity, and they've done a wonderful job in sharing that information. They certainly did it with you, Jim, first, and with a lot of the hunting and shooting sports, and now they've done a lot with the fishing as well. So that connection is really important. Also for, again, the states and the federal agencies to realize all the where that money is coming from, and then being able to use the funding. On the other side, when we talk about trying to reach to the end consumer, again, as a trade organization, we don't spend a lot of time and money focusing on that. We do count on RBFF and the TakeMeFishing.org website and the work that they do to do the outreach for participation. But we know that part of RBFF's goals are that want to increase participation fishing and boating, but then turn those folks into good stewards as well with money, with conservation. For us, we do a lot of advocacy work through our Keep America Fishing campaign. And so whatever those issues are, our government affairs folks are tremendous at what they do. That doesn't make them necessarily writers and authors or doing a lot of visible speaking engagements, if you will. They're doing the work. They're doing the work behind the scenes. They're doing the work here on the Hill and around the country. We always will take the high road. We're always going to leave the door open to fight another day. And sometimes these things take a long time to get passed when it comes to fisheries policy. And our folks have done such a tremendous job. So we take, our folks from the government affairs side, partner with our communications team, and have created really a strong site within asafishing.org. If they click on the advocacy side of that, you're going to see all the different types of issues that we're working on right now. And so whether it's freshwater or saltwater, whether it's dealing with lead or trade. We have so many different programs in there to talk about. And it's really great to have your audience get informed on these issues. Your audience is smart. Your audience are conservation minded and very much appreciate that. If they want to dig deeper when it comes to red snapper or just dealing with invasive species, then we're going to get into some of the policy that we're working on and trying to get bills passed so that the federal agencies can carry out those programs. And there's really no shortage of topics. But I feel like we've never been better positioned. One of the goals I've had with our government affairs team since I took over 7 years ago was I want the federal agencies and I want the Natural Resource Committee on the Hill and others to say, what does ASA think? It goes back to some of us older folks say what E.F. Hutton says, and people listen. It's so true. And sorry about the younger generation maybe listening, because I've asked this and they don't know who E.F. Hutton is. But, we believe that when Mike Leonard speaks, he's our Vice President of Government Affairs, people are listening. And when we have conversations with folks up here in the Capitol, at the Natural Resource Committee, that they want to know what ASA thinks before some of these laws are put together. Our folks have their thumbprints on these laws that are being passed as we speak. And so it's so important for folks to be engaged. It's one thing for us to be a staff of 21 people. We have a board of 21 people. We have a membership of about 900 people. We think about the jobs in the sport fishing industry, about 1.1 million people. But as you mentioned, it's 57 million plus people that went fishing. And so we need more voices when it comes to these issues. When we share a Keep America Fishing campaign issue, we need more people to share those things as well and write their congressmen or women, write whether it's to Fish and Wildlife Service or NOAA. It could be just the Department of Interior. It could be something that's deep down into the Bureau of Land Management. All these things that we're going to be talking about. And so we would love for people to come to asafishing.org, click on the advocacy, read about Keep America Fishing, and click and so that you can provide your email address and so that we can share information with you and you can share with others.
Well, outstanding. And that's, y'all are definitely the tip of the spear on fishing issues in this country. There's no doubt. But, like any spear tip, you got to have something behind it. And that's the grassroots support of people like our listeners who, folks, go to these sites, look at these issues. The things are important to you. Become an activist on them. Call your Congress, write your congressman. Find out how to get involved in them, because that's, I've done the state agency side of things. State agencies can't make wins unless the sportsmen and women in that state are behind them. Industry wide, same thing. The support is not just the manufacturers, it's the people buying the products that like to and enjoy recreating those things. You got to speak up for them, or they're going to be a lot of stuff's going to be on the chopping block. So we appreciate what you're doing there. Let's switch topics a little bit. You've hit on it a couple of times here, but ICAST, your crown jewel, it's where everybody gets to see what's going on in the fishing world. Tell us, I know we talked just briefly about, the upcoming one, but in general, tell folks what that is and what it does and what it really means to the sport fishing community.
Yeah, absolutely. So ICAST is the International Convention of Allied Sport Fishing Trades. It's always fun to ask people that because a lot of people don't get it. And I've been fortunate to go to the show since 1989. It's been around for 68 years. Yes, that is older than me. But the show is the collection of the community of sport fishing folks. And we'll have in the neighborhood of 630 exhibitors there showing off their latest products. Of those 630 exhibitors, we will have about 1,000 new products in the new product showcase. But really across the show floor, there's about 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 products that are new. And we'll have in the neighborhood of 1,200 individual retail establishments there. Bass Pro's one retailer, Walmart's one retailer, but it's really, there's about 1,100, 1,200 other retailers that'll be there looking at the new products, communicating with these manufacturers, buying the products for their upcoming season. And then the media there is there's about 1,000 folks in the media, outdoor media across the country, whether it's Fresh or Salt, and whether it's some of the podcasts that are out there, or some other influencers. I love how they communicate to their audience different than others to their own, because they have a following that is maybe bass fishing related, or maybe it's offshore related. And so it's really important for them to talk about the new products that they see and the things that they're hearing about those sides of the industries. We tie in conservation from some of the folks there from Fish and Wildlife Services, certainly from Florida and South Carolina and others. And we'll get some folks from Florida legislature there and commissions. But it's really important for the folks to participate. Just to be there, to be a part of it is critical to the future of fishing. And so there's something about the atmosphere that we use the term, we use it too often. Kid in a candy store. You can't get enough of it. And it's not just the product, it's the people, it's the enthusiasm. It gets you so fired up. The passion for this industry. The folks that are there are my heroes, the legends of the sport that have been around this industry for 30, 40, 50 years. And you can learn so much. I wish it was longer. There's never enough time there. It comes Friday at 3:00. I'm like, damn, I didn't get to see so-and-so and so-and-so. And so I'm just still a little kid when it comes to that show.
And there are people that pick up, I actually, believe it or not, and Jim and I both attended ICAST, and I've seen things there that I'm pretty sure weren't even, technology-wise, weren't even on the first space shuttle we launched. There's some really cool tech there too. And we've done some remote podcasts there. We had a guy on that was a Texas bass tournament champion who was all of 18 years old. He was fascinating to talk to, but earlier on, when I first went, back when I was still working for an agency, it's like I actually took up fly fishing because I went to ICAST and watched folks working rods over your fly casting pool there. And I'm like, I think I can do this, and other than that, I'd only seen it in the movies. But I think there's a lot of crossover benefits there too. It's one of the most exciting things I do personally is ICAST. So thanks for having us there. So
we'll keep doing it, and it's member owned, and so it's all about return on investment for those members and providing them value so that they can continue to sell product and provide value to the retailers, to have them to make the effort to come in the middle of the summer to Orlando and hang out with our industry for 3 or 4 days. And we make it more fun. We have other activities. We have an on the water demo day the day before on the Tuesday. We have a lunkers and bunkers, meaning you can be in a golf tournament and also fish on those holes. And we know that some of the best bass fishing is on golf courses. And so between awards and industry breakfast and really sharing things that are going on in the industry with everyone, it's so important for folks to gather at least that once a year and be a part of this community.
Yeah, you got great education throughout the show too, presentations on, what's going on in the world. And, but, it's comforting to know that ASA is out there fighting for all those 57 million anglers. But again, those folks, pay attention, go check out the website and do something. We call it the Orange Army for the hunters and the Blue Wave for the anglers. And if we all get together on these things, makes your job easier. But in addition to ICAST, I think you guys put on a summit as well. So you guys are always working, right?
Always working. The Sportfishing Summit is so much fun for me. It's even more work for me than ICAST, believe it or not. The rest of the staff does all the work at ICAST. I show up and make drinks. At the summit, I've got so many different meetings going on. But the Sportfishing Summit is great because instead of trying to communicate with 14,000 people at ICAST, we have about 200 industry leaders there representing more than 100 of the members of ASA. And we get together and really do the business of the association. So besides board meetings, we'll have committee meetings talking about government affairs, talking about everything from membership to data and statistics and things like that. And I'll have some tremendous speakers come each year as well that you'll always get a couple of really good nuggets, whether it's motivational or whether it's informational. But it's the time you get to spend with these individuals at breakfast, lunch, receptions, and dinner, where you just don't get that same time at ICAST. There's not enough time to see everybody. But here you really get a chance to build relationships. I know that Shout out to our friend John Mazurkowitz, who will connect people. And for years, he was trying to get me to come to the summit. And about 25 years ago, it finally worked out schedule wise for me to come. I'm like, John, why didn't you try to get me to come before? and so, I wouldn't be in this seat today if it wasn't for John really connecting me 25 years ago to come to the summit from my role in the Sportfishing magazine scenario. And I'm like, wow, this is great. I got to actually really sit down and talk to these people and really have a chance to get to know them and get to know the industry and build this community. And now 25 years later, it's like the summit is just one of the most important things that anybody involved in our industry should be participating in. And if you're in the trade and you're a member of ASA, you really need to take the time. This year we're going to be in Key West, and what's wrong with Key West in October? Nothing. So I think that every year it's great. No matter who comes, we deal with the folks that are there, and the folks that aren't there, you're missing out.
All right. So, we covered a lot today, and there's a lot going on. Again, we appreciate everything you guys are doing. So, just one more time for those listening, where would they go for more information? Your web pages, your social media. How's the best way to get the news on what's up with ASA and what we need to pay attention to?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Again, the Keep America Fishing advocacy arm lives inside of the asafishing.org website. And you can learn everything you want to know. Keep in mind that website is designed for the trade first, but the Keep American Fishing information is consumer oriented as well. And so it's a great chance to learn about what's going on in the industry and make your voice heard through us sharing this information with your friends and your congressmen and women and legislature.
Good deal. Well, Glenn, thank you for coming on. You're a solid partner. You've been there for years for the fishing community and the conservation community, even at a larger scale. Keep doing what you're doing. However we can help you, we're a phone call away. So we appreciate you, what you and your members do for conservation, and we appreciate supporting that funding model that keeps America fishing. To our listeners, thank you for listening. Please listen to some other our podcasts, including this one. Subscribe if you could. That'll get you notifications when the next one's dropped. And other than that, we'll see you in the woods or on the water. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast. Please do us a favor and tell your buddies, friends, family, and others about what you've learned here today. If you like what you heard, come on back anytime and listen to another episode of the Connecting with Conservation podcast.